What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 15 of the Roots of Success podcast. I am your host, Nate the Great Peterman, and today I have a very, very special guest. I've known him for about, I'd say, a year and a half, going on 2 years now. My man, Mike Nelson. What's going on, brother?
Oh, man. Thank you so much for having me, man. I appreciate it. Blessed, humble. Anytime that you get a call from Nate the Great, I think that you should take it. So I'm blessed to be here, man. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Nah, no doubt, man. You know it for sure. I definitely, got a lot of respect for what you're doing, man.
Thank you, man.
Of course, with you and your journey and everything, it's definitely huge and, real recognized, real to say the least. So yeah, man, I mean, for those of you who might be wondering, who's this Mike guy? I know about 100 Mikes. What
Right.
makes him so different
Right.
from all the other Mikes that I might know? So a little bit of a background. Mike Nelson is an educational leader, motivational speaker, minister, and author. Mike travels the country helping schools to close the achievement gap with his programming, workshops, assemblies, and seminars. Mike is a trained, certified speaker, coached, and mentored by Dr. Eric Thomas. Mike's mission is to help bridge the gap between education and opportunities for students. Wow, man, that's incredible.
I'm like, is that me? Wait, I do a double take. Like, is that me?
Heck yeah, man. So, shoot, I know your story's a lot deeper, of course. I know it's just a little bit of a brief intro. So, man, tell the audience a little bit more about where Mike Nelson comes from. I mean, I know a little bit about
Yeah.
it, even myself. I'm sort of curious about, maybe the lifestyle you had growing up and really what got you to where you're at today, man.
Yeah, man. So I always say, I always share West Philadelphia, born and raised, playgrounds where I spent most of my days, literally. But yeah, man. So I grew up West Philly. I think for me, I had a very, very unique background because actually where I grew up at, directly where I grew up at, it wasn't too much of a bad area. Like literally the spot where I grew up at, it wasn't bad, but it was the places that I would hang out that was typically bad. So I say, yeah, it was weird. Like I lived in a pretty okay area near Ivy League school, University of Penn, but like right down the block was like the project. So it was a very strange dynamic. On one hand, you see an Ivy League students, and on the next hand, you got people from the projects that you're friends with. So it was a very, it's a very unique experience. But I think for me, just growing up, man, just being challenged with school, I could not stand school. I still can't stand school to this day. Like I just hated it. And so for me, I think my whole thing was just growing up and struggling with school and man, just trying to, say, what am I going to do with my life? Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I was pretty good in sports. Football was my thing. I was pretty good at it. But once I found out at the college level, I was like, okay, these guys are a little big. I don't think this is going to work no more. I think your high school, your football journey has gone as far as it's possibly going to go. And so for me, I had to figure out what the heck am I going to do with the rest of my life? Like a lot of kids, like, okay, people are pushing college. And I just was like, I guess I can go. I mean, who knows? Like, it wasn't, nobody in my immediate family went off to college. Like, my biological dad, he was in special ed. He dropped out in 10th grade. My mom dropped out as a senior in high school. And so for me, I just was like, and my sisters, they graduated and they went off to like, I think one of my sisters like tried to do community for a little bit, but she ended up dropping out. So for me, I just was like, well, Mike, what do you have to lose? I looked at a lot of my friends and I just was like, they was either selling drugs or they just was doing dumb stuff. And I knew early on, I was like, I don't want that for my life. It doesn't take a rocket science to say, okay, if 10 people are doing the same thing and they end up either locked up, dead, or in jail or not doing anything, Mike, you're going to be the 11th if you continue to hang around them. So I applied to colleges. I got into one, not 17, not 7. I got into one college. And that was enough for me. I took advantage of my opportunity. And I got there, and it was not what I expected. I remember the professor asking a question. It was something with, like, Microsoft Word, and I'm telling you, I could not answer the question. And that's how I knew, like, okay, Mike, you're going to be in trouble. So I had, like, a 1.9 GPA, struggled, had some tough conversations with my advisor. He was like, look, Mike, like, you might as well pack it in and go home, because the way that you're going, this is just not going to work. So I was able to pull up my grades, man, with some tough lessons that I've learned. And then I graduated, and I was like, what am I supposed to do now? So I just wanted to help kids who were like me, who may have said, man, you know what? I want to go to college and give this thing a shot. And so I was able to do that. I was able to work as a recruiter, a student recruiter, and I would be able to do like presentations in front of people. And I was like, this is pretty good. Now, when I took a public speaking course in college, my professor told me, like, you a natural, Mike. Like, this is something, I don't know if you really want to turn this into a career. And I just was like, a career? I was like, ain't nobody getting paid for no public speaking. Like, I didn't know at the time. I just thought people just was doing it as a hobby. And I was like, no, I need to make money doing this. Like, this is not going to work. So I was a student recruiter. And I'm going to just be honest. Like, I kind of fell into motivational speaking, like, kind of it was like accident, but on purpose at the same time. Like, I would do presentations, and I just was like, I wonder when we have, like, new student orientation, will they allow me to say, like, maybe share for 15 minutes? So I would do it. And I remember the first time I did it, and the staff and everybody was like, where the heck did that come from? And I just was like, I don't know where it came from. And so they kept asking me to do it. I end up the school. I worked at a school and it ended up closing down. And so I just said, you know what, Mike, why don't you, I think you got something with this. I don't know where it's going to go, but I kind of think you got something with that. So just over the past year and a half, year and some change, I've been doing this full time as a speaker. And for the past 4 or 5 years, I've been kind of working and speaking and working and speaking. But as early as, a year and some change ago, I'm full time now. So it has been a journey, man. It has been a journey.
Man, that's incredible. And, I look at, of course, you talking about school and everything. And I feel like a lot of kids, especially going through high school, they're sort of in the same situation. But with you sort of identifying what I like to call your gift, which is speaking. And of course, with the teachers and the faculty sort of saying the same thing, like, oh, Mike, I mean, this is your lane, bro. Like, this is your craft. You got to go all in.
Right.
I mean, that's incredible. So were you not like, because me, I wasn't big into like testing or anything like that. Did you do so good on tests?
Say it again.
Did you do any, like, were you good on tests at all?
Oh, no. Tests, first of all through high school, like our high school, it wasn't the best high school. Like, I never studied not one time. So when I got to college, you can't be going to college and saying, well, I'm just not going to study. That's not going to work. And so, man, when I tell you, I'm test after test after test. And finally, I had to make up in my mind. I said, look, Mike, if you're going to be here and you're going to graduate, you're going to have to learn how to study. Literally, it was like learning a brand new language. I was like, okay, I'm supposed to memorize these key dates and all that. So literally, I had to learn how to study, not in 5th grade, not in 6th grade. It was in college where I literally had to teach myself how to actually study. So very, very, very painful, very painful. So any students listening to this, please, if you need to learn how to study, please get in contact with me. I want to save you all of the pain and heartache on the back
end. So would you say for like your first ever speech you did in school,
yep.
Like professionally, where they actually grade you and whatnot, were you comfortable or were you like a little bit jittery?
Man, I think for me, I was just so naive and ignorant. I just was like, I'm about to change the world with all these speeches. I'm going to go in. I just got put on the ET. It was somebody who looked like me, who seemed fairly young. And I was like, I'm about to go change the world. And so I remember doing my first speech. I tell all the speakers that I coach and train, I say, my first speech I'm pretty sure it was terrible. Like it was absolutely terrible. Like it just was. I think I talked about the Hunger Games.
Oh, wow.
It was terrible. Now they loved it. They was like, oh, this is the best thing since sliced bread. Like I'm a completely different speaker 4 or 5 years ago than I am now. But I would just say that, it's definitely been a learning experience, learning, why do you say certain stuff during the speech, when to bring your voice up, when to bring it down. Why do you go out to an audience? You may touch a person's shoulder. You might talk to somebody in the audience, have a one-on-one one-on-one direct conversation. So there's been little tricks and trades that I've learned. But my first speech, matter of fact, I'm just going to be honest. My first couple of speeches were probably like, if I look back now, I'm like, ooh, I don't really know how how they thought that was actually good. Maybe they just was trying to be nice, but hooking up with Dr. Eric Thomas and a couple of other people really showing me of ways to improve. It has been definitely a blessing. But my first speech is terrible, man. Like it's in the archives somewhere. I'm like, never bring that out.
Man, too bad nobody recorded that, you know?
Yeah, hey, exactly. I'm like, thank God that nobody was recording it on like YouTube or anything, because I don't know if I would have had a gig like coming after that if somebody would have probably saw that. So thank God.
Oh, that's so funny. So, yeah, for speaking, of course, a lot of people that go through that class in school, they get so nervous. I remember even myself, I was very, very nervous. I don't do like a lot of public speaking or anything like that, but I feel like, and I'm sure you can attest to this as well, with you being like a professional speaker and us being, sort of talking about this, speaking right now. I feel like there's a point where you can control the nerves, right? Whether it's to work with you or against you. You know what I mean? And I feel like a lot of people, they let it sort of work against them instead of with them. And I don't know, maybe that's just me, but I feel like a lot of passion tends to come out, whenever whether it's getting ready to speak or it's just building up and building up and building up. Or whenever you're speaking, it just comes out like either raw passion or it's like, oh, it's like, man, what is this?
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think that, look at speaking as just, this topic is just life in general. Whenever you're embarking on something new or something that's kind of the unknown or something that you're not comfortable with, you're always going to have nerves. But as you said, you can make those nerves work for you or you can have them work against you. So when I get up and speak, I'm still nervous, but I'm never nervous as far as like, what am I going to say? I'm nervous because I understand that when I stand before people, I have the ability by the grace of God to be able to change people's lives. And I want to make sure that I say the right thing so it can be well received. But I'm never nervous as far as saying, what am I going to say? Like, how is it going to come out? But it can be nerve wracking. Like, I just remember, like, there's a stat out there that says, like, one of people's worst fears is, like, public speaking. So when I was growing up, I said, look, I'm not trying to do no schoolwork. So I was like, look, when we got to do a group presentation, you do the schoolwork, I'll do the presentation. You don't have to say nothing. I'll do the whole 20 minutes. I'll get up and talk. And I was like, that's how sometimes when I did the presentation, that's how sometimes I would make sure that I pass. But I just think with speaking, it can be a very nerve-wracking thing. But I think like with anything in life, the more that you do it and the more that you get comfortable at it, the better that you should be able to get at it. But like with most things in life, that's what just a lot of things is literally the repetition of doing it on a consistent basis over and over and over. So when I get on stage, because I speak so much, I'm speaking, especially during the school year, 2 or 3 times at schools. I'm on calls, I'm on coaching calls, I'm on accountability calls. I'm sharing so much that when I get up on stage, it's just like practicing. It's like Steph Curry shooting 1,000 jump shots a day. And when he gets in the game, he's not thinking because it's automatic muscle memory. So that's kind of what I like to compare it to.
Wow. I like how, you said the power of repetition, because that's really all it is. I mean, in the book Outliers, Malcolm Gladwell talks about 10,000 times,
10,000
right?
hours.
10,000 hours, right? And it's amazing, man, because a lot of people, they sort of overlook that. They think, man, I'm going to master this in a day. And it's like, bro, do you realize what you're up for? I mean, come on.
Exactly. No, there's no such thing as mastering anything in a day. It's not going to
work. Right. So what would you say, let's sort of put ourselves in a student's shoes.
Yeah.
Right. Let's say, we're getting ready to prep for whether it's senior year or junior year, depending on when you take speaking class or whatever. And let's say, you're prepping and everything. And how can you really, I'm trying to think how I can word this. How would you, for a speaker that's getting ready, like you want to master speaking, you want to become a professional speaker.
Yeah.
Is there a way that you can really prep in terms of a student in
Yeah.
school? Because, they don't teach, I
Right.
mean, I don't personally think they teach speaking class, right? I mean, they sort of just get you, to stand up and
Exactly.
talk because it's a requirement,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, you know what I mean, though?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think with anything, and I know for me, what helped me to get through it, just anything with speaking academically is that, you got to have some pride, right? Like at the end of the day, like when you get graded, like that's your last name. Like you got to take some pride over it. So it don't matter what class it is. But I think specifically with students, I would say probably the first thing that you want to do is not remember, but you want to internalize your speech. So you don't want to be like a robot, just saying it and saying it and saying it, and it comes across really robotic. But I think what you want to do is you want to get the speech in you. So, for example, I'm big on reading. I read frequently, but I said to myself this year, you know what? I'm not going to read 14 books at a time because I only can retain but so much information. But if I read one book this whole year, and now the book becomes a part of me because it's internalized and it's in me. Now I can get up and I'm quoting stuff from the book, and the book has become a part of my life. And I think it's the same thing with speaking. You study as a student, you need to be able to write out. I tell my speakers, write out everything that you're going to say, old school, manuscript, write out the entire thing. And I want you to look over it and I want you to rehearse it, but not rehearse it to remember it and memorize it, but internalize it. So when you get up, it's so free flowing and natural. So that would probably be the first thing. The second thing is when you're up, whether you like it or not, and you're in front of a group of people, those people deem you as the leader in that moment. So just take the pressure off of you and realize that you have something of value to say that's going to be able to help somebody. So when you take the pressure off of, oh, are they going to like the stuff that I say? Am I going to be too nervous? Like, what are they going to think of me? Just know that what I'm about to say could potentially change their life. And so when you put the pressure and the onus back on them and not on you, because when you're thinking about you, it becomes selfish. When you have to constantly worry about stuff, and I always say, you can't think and speak at the same time. Like you trying to think about what are they going to think? How are they going to judge me? When you just get up and say, I'm going to share these 2 or 3 principles, I think that's what's the game changer. So take all of the pressure off of you. And now you say, I know I have something of value to say, and it's going to be able to help change their life. Now, it doesn't have to be something like a dramatic story. It could be something funny. Like, I think storytelling is so powerful. So if you can become really good at storytelling, there's a quote that says, facts sell, stories tell. So if you can just get in the mindset of telling stories, and think about it, Nate, we tell stories all the time, but it's just that when you get up, you're not doing it. When you get up and do it, now you're doing it intentionally. But all the rest of the time, we probably tell great stories. Like storytelling has been around for so many years, but I think we just be like, well, I'm just going to shy away from it and I'm going to try to memorize this whole speech. And I'm like, that's the quickest way to fail. So I think just really getting into the habit of storytelling, knowing that it's not about you, it's about them. I think those are some key things that can literally be able to, I ain't saying that you're going to be a world-class speaker after your first speech, but that'll be able to help you to easily flow with the rest of your speeches that you have to do.
Wow, no, that's so true. No, I appreciate you sharing that too, Mike, because I know you do coach, clients and speakers of yours, in like your programs and your courses and everything. So definitely, I mean, if you're not taking notes, I mean, shoot, I'd be playing this back at least a few times, especially if you try to be a speaker. You feel me?
All right.
But I know, Mike, you do a lot with school and things. Of course, like with empowering the youth, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, working with kids, that's not a joke.
Tough.
It's not the easiest thing to do, especially. I mean, I'm not sure. Do you do like elementary school work? I'm sure.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
elementary, high school, middle school, college. I just think that dealing with people and just with students in general, it can be tough because they have different home situations that they're all coming from, and they're different personalities. But I always say is that, and I heard this from John Maxwell, people don't care how much you know until they first know how much you actually care. And so before I try to go and do anything, if possible, I try to go to the school beforehand, and I try to, make connections with students while they're coming in. I'm shaking hands and I'm trying to start up a conversation, because before I open up my mouth and present, I want them to know that there's a level of comfort. I want them to know that I actually care first, because you get a lot of people who just come and they just talk, and some speakers, not all, but they're hollow. They just getting up and talking because they want to hear themselves talk. And I'm like, no, you had a chance to be able to change a student's lives. I can't tell you, sometimes, I get DMs, I'll get messages from students of, man, you know what, Mike, you came in and it changed my life. I had a student last year, she was failing. She ended up pulling up her grades. This was 2 years that went past, and she sent me like a DM and was like, hey, I just wanted to let you know you came and spoke at my school a few years back. I pulled up my grades. I graduated 15th in my class, and I ended up going off to college. And I was like, that's a game changer right there. But what if I would have went in being selfish and saying, well, it's all about me. Let me share the principles that I want to share, instead of being able to meet the need of students. But man, it is tough. It is not an easy job. It's not for everybody working with students. But I think one of the main things which has made me so effective is that I try to bridge the gap. Like, school is 180 days. Let's just be honest. Most students are not trying to be there for 180 days. You got to be there from 8 to 3. You sit in the classroom like, oh my God, why are we doing trigonometry? How is this possibly going to help me? So I think my job is try to take school and make school, have students envision it as an opportunity of, if you learn this information, what are you going to be able to do it? Like, how much can it change your family? If you're living in the hood and you're trying to get your family out the hood, okay, sports may not be an option, but can school be an option? So I share a story about a young man, Stanford University he attends now, and he entered into this Google Science Fair. This is a few years ago, right? And he came out with, he won, and he came out with this patented drone that he made. And I think he was worth like $250,000 at the age of 18 from his invention. And he attributed to a skill that he learned in school. So that's why I say school is the new money. Like, you can take a skill, a subject that you learn in school, and you can literally, with the way that stuff is now, you can literally make money off of like anything that you want in school. There was a lady I talked to not too long ago, and she was from Panama, I want to say, and she told me, this is why I'm telling that a student can't ever tell me that, well, Mike, I just have a problem learning. Like, or now it's one thing you have a learning deficiency or something like that. That's one thing. But most students don't. But she told me it took her 4 weeks to learn English. It took her 4 weeks to learn English. Like, I don't know what she spoke, but she said English wasn't her natural thing, and it took her 4 weeks to learn it. And I asked her the question. I said, how the heck did you learn English in 4 weeks? I was like, look, I took Greek and Hebrew, and I don't remember any of it. And I was like, how did you do it in 4 weeks? And she told me, she said, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to my country, and I'm going to be able to help, because I think she was a teacher. And one of the things is that when they come over here, they can't speak English, like whoever the people are. She was like, I'm going to go back, and I'm going to help them to learn English, and I'm going to charge them a nice fee. But I just took a tutor who taught me a skill, English, and how to learn it. And now I'm going to go back, and I'm going to teach all the other teachers who are trying to come over there with a nice fee. And I was just like, you took a skill that you learned in school and you changed the game. So this is why I'm saying, I don't care if it's math, science, history. We have case after case after case. Hence, me taking public speaking, a skill I learned in school. I did not learn this in West Philly. I was able to hone it, and I turned it into a business. So whatever subject it is, you can turn it into an opportunity. So that's kind of my whole thing. And students, the light goes off like, yo, you're actually right. I could take all this, and I just need you to become good at one thing, Nate. I don't need you to be good at math, English, social studies, science. Now, I'm saying that you should pass all your classes, but I don't need you to be, look, if you ain't trying to be a 4.0 student, like, I'm cool. I'm okay with it. But can you get one subject that you can become a master at and create an opportunity for you and your family? Absolutely.
No, that's deep. And I look at that a lot because even myself in school, whenever I went, I really struggled like with math, for example. And I don't know. I never felt the need that I was like, man, I don't need this. Like, am I going to be a construction worker or something? You know, I just didn't feel the need for it. And I guess, that sort of leads to the question of what, because obviously, you're there with the kids, you see them walk in, you're shaking their hands, right?
Mhm.
Even hugging them, I'm sure. So what would be one of the biggest traits that you see in some of these kids that are walking, and a majority of the kids,
Yep.
that holds them back from actually propelling and succeeding more in the school life, if
Man,
that makes sense?
yeah. I think it really, Nate, it's a limiting belief because a lot of these kids, and I've done suburban schools, Title I
Mm,
schools, schools in the hood, alternative schools. And one of the
okay.
constant things that I see is that it is a limited belief in themselves of, man, you know what? Look, listen, you might be in the suburbs and, you have an absentee dad. He may live with you. He might have he might be present, but he doesn't have a presence in the house. He's always working, trying to keep up this big house and all that. And he thinks that he's doing right by his kids, but his kids are like, Dad, I just need some time. But he doesn't have enough time. So they feel like because nobody ever told me I was good, nobody ever told me what I could do, I feel like I can't be successful. Then you might have another student from a different school who says, man, you know what, my dad, like me, biological dad, left, walked out, and you like, man, I don't have a man, I don't have a positive male role model in my life to tell me the things that I can do and be able to get accomplished. So I think beyond like, I'm not even like the intelligence stuff, like doing subjects literally. Like you can learn English, math, you can learn any subject that you put your mind to. You can get some tutoring. But I think for me, it's really what I've seen in each school and case is like students really, and I think this is just a microcosm of life. Because if you think about it, if you don't believe in yourself in grade school, the chances are is that it's not going to change when you get to college. And then hence, now you're an adult and you don't believe in yourself at all. So I think that's kind of been the one constant thing of students not believing that they can be successful, not believing that they can get a 3.0, not really believing of, okay, nobody in my family went off to college, so who am I to think that I can go off to college? Or on the opposite end, it's too much pressure. Everybody in my family is a doctor, a lawyer. Like, it's too much pressure for me to try to do that. So the number one thing I think that holds students back, it has absolutely zero to do with grades, because I'm a firm believer is that when your confidence is high and you believe in you, it's nothing that you can't get accomplished. And I'm talking about from lived experience. So I think that's probably the number one thing I think that really holds students back from whether it's their dreams or goals, getting that 4.0. Like, that's one of the key things I think holds students back.
Let me ask you this. Do you recommend every student should have a tutor or a mentor, whether it's throughout school or college?
Absolutely. If it was possible, yeah. Because me personally, as an adult, I have mentors, I have coaches that I work with. So, and
Mhm.
I'm telling you, helping to change my life. It's an ongoing basis. So I'm saying, if I'm a grown man and I'm getting it and it's helping me, can you imagine how much it would do for a student if you had somebody to bounce ideas off of? If you had an older person to be able to give you a sense of direction to tell you, if I was you, I wouldn't go left, I would go right, because here are the consequences. And so a lot of the students, they don't have mentors. So when I come in, my job is to be, look, sometimes for the little kids, I'm Uncle Mike. Sometimes for the big kids, I'm Big Bro. I'm Cousin Mike. Like, my job in that sense is to be whatever they need me to be, because I want them to stay away from the potential dangers that are on the outside. As I always say, like, school is like an incubator. Like, you can, like, they're going to protect you, but so much. But as you and I both know, when you get out in the real world, it's sharks out here, and they don't care nothing about your feelings. They don't care the fact that your mom died, your dad died. You're not that smart. You come from poverty. You rich. Like, the world out here is cold. And so it's my job to be able to go in and give them that information, that tough love, but let them know that I care at the end of the day, so they can transition well. So that's kind of been my whole thing as far as, working in schools and really trying to be able to help students to see there's a bigger picture. Like, I know that, nobody in your family has done this, but there is a bigger picture. If you simply would stop thinking about what could go wrong and you start thinking about what could go right.
Yeah, that's deep. I mean, even myself, at the young age of 16, I got introduced to of course, ET and everything, and watching his videos in school. It's funny, I had people used to bust me all the time, like, what's this be watching this, good old brother on the
This
screen, like,
dude
just preach
screaming.
it. You feel me? And people just didn't understand the concept of it. And I'm a firm believer that, having, and here's the thing, like, and I know you can attest this as well, a mentor or a tutor, they don't necessarily have to be in person, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
And it's
Exactly.
like with that, I mean, I've, watched so many videos, personal development videos, and I'm a firm believer that's definitely, I'm not saying it's gotten me to where I'm at, but it's definitely helped me, like with the mental game,
Oh yeah.
sharpening the axe
Oh,
and,
oh
and,
yeah.
and things. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that they don't, which I wish they would, that they don't teach in school, which blows my
Yeah.
mind. I'm like, look, you could teach all of the equations and formulas, but if you don't develop personally, I don't care what field you're in, if you're not developing personally, what happens is that the people you are attempting to lead, so if we're training our students to be leaders, if you don't teach them about personal development, the people they're trying to lead, eventually at some point in time, they're going to lap them. And then you become stale in what it is that you actually do. You always have to be growing. So again, I always say, look, I don't care if you have a 4.0. I'm like, okay, like you worked hard, cool. But where's your integrity? Where's your character? Like, can you grind? Like, and I think that's one of the things that's missing with the younger students is like they had the work ethic. It's just, across the board. I don't care what school, it's terrible. I'm like, and they give up so easy. I'm like, if you manage just to be able to stick it through, because again, I'm trying to tell you on the front end that there are no handouts and there are no discounts outside. Like there is no makeup work in real life. Once you miss your opportunity, that's it. Very rarely do you get a second and third opportunity.
Yeah.
So school, I think sometimes it does a disservice because the academic piece I get, but sometimes it teaches stuff. It teaches stuff that's just not real. Like you're not going to get 3 and 4 chances. You're not going to get makeup work. Like nobody's going to hold your hand when you walk out these doors. And so I wish that schools would be able to teach you, personal development, life skills, like, how to get through tragedy, like just certain things, because as you and I both know, the longer that you live, the more stuff you're going to experience and go through. And it's being able to be able to get through all of that tough stuff. That's what helps you to make you successful. I'm not really big on the academic piece. I say all the time, give me a student that's a 2.5 student, but has been resilient, has had to work their behind off, who has developed, who reads, versus the person who has a 4.0. And then when they go out and try to apply for a job, they had a 4.0 their whole life. When they go out and try to apply for a job, and the first time that they hear no or rejection, they cry and their whole life is in shambles. Give me the 2.5 student any day. Because what I discovered, Nate, is that unless you work at Microsoft or one of these big companies, they're not even checking for GPAs. Like, oh, you graduated with a 3.6? So once I realized, all right, Mike, the person who graduated with a 4.0 and the person who graduated with a 2.5, it doesn't mean the person with a 4.0 is going to be able to go further in life. It has zero to do with that. In the real world, like grades don't necessarily count. Like grades only count in the academia world. Like that's the only time that grades count. But in the real world, it's about your heart. It's about your drive. It's about your grind. So I just want all of our students, man, like, look, please, you need to be reading books outside of the stuff that you read. Like you need to be growing on a consistent basis.
No, absolutely. And it's funny that you mentioned that because it seems like, the people that had like a 2.5 GPA compared to the ones that, like you said, have a 4.0. I mean, it's like every time a 4.0 got like a B, it's like, man, this is the end of the world. But man, if I got a B, I'm like, hey,
Bro, I get a
it's a
C. I'm
vibe.
cool. I get a
You
C. I'm
know?
like, man, I got a C. I keep it pushing.
So do you think, with somebody having a 4.0 and then of course they're taking it hard, right? Do you think that might have something to do with them being raised a certain way compared to somebody that, might not have a 4.0, they have a 2.5 and they're like, yeah, I got a C, like I did good. Like explain that a little bit more.
So I think it's twofold. So I think it definitely is the way that you're raised, but I think it could be the culture of America in which we live in. We're always pressing forward for academic success, and we want our students to be scholars, and we want them to be. And And the truth is that most human beings, unless you Albert Einstein, most human beings are not like, we're not wired that way. Unless you're a child prodigy or a genius, like most of us are not wired that way. But does that not mean because I'm not a 4.0 student that I can't be successful? So what I just wish is that we would stop pushing the agenda. Again, you should always be doing your best because that's a part of life is giving your very best. But I just think that I wish we would stop pushing this agenda that if you don't be a 4.0 student, if you don't go to college, then that means that you're going to be a failure. I said, oh, okay, so ask Mark Zuckerberg, you can ask Bill Gates, you can ask like all the people who ended up either going and dropping out, P. Diddy, you can ask all these people who didn't go to college and you look at them now versus the guy who graduated in the top of their class that same year as them. And I wonder, I'm not saying that they're not successful, but come on, me and you both know that it's not close. So I think that it's the way that you raise, how your family raises you, which I'm stern on that your parents, I think that they should try to get the best out of you. But I think sometimes what we got to understand is that my best may not be a 4.0. Like my best may be a 3.5. For example, I knew for a fact when I was getting my master's, bro, I was not going to be able to get a 4.0 because I was working, married, church responsibilities. There's no way I was going to be able to get a 4.0 with all that stuff. But could I get a 3.4? Could I get a 3.5? Absolutely. Because I have all this other stuff that I have to worry about. So I think if we would kill the narrative, the 4.0 is sexy. But then when I realized, okay, you can have a 4.0 and graduate a magna cum laude and summa cum laude and still be broke. I'm like, so why are we even doing all this? But yeah, it's just the perception out there. So I think it's twofold. It's the culture of America that you got to be so bright and so intelligent. And then I do think it's the way that you raise. So I think it's twofold.
No, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about, I guess the teachers' importance of this. Because of course, with you going in, I'm sure you sort of observe a lot. I'm sure you're very self-aware, and I'm sure you look at the surroundings of what these kids are really just surrounded by day in and day out. How big of an impact does a teacher have on the students? And what has been one of the biggest things that you could, I don't know, I mean, I'm sure you've talked to teachers. What's like one of the biggest things that you've sort of preached to them that not necessarily like, hey, you got to change this, but you're sort of empowering them? You know what I mean?
So I think I say that teachers have a profound impact. I share a story sometimes when I'm talking to teachers because I never want teachers to undervalue themselves. So a couple of challenges with teachers, Nate, is that oftentimes they feel like they don't have a voice. God forbid if you have kids in your classroom that are disrupting instruction time. And, a lot of them are underpaid. I believe that there's a stat that says teachers, I think it's like close to 50% of teachers in their first 5 years end up leaving the profession because it's just too much. Like you're not getting paid enough. You overwork. The principals are so demanding. It's more. And then you're trying to deal with students and their different personalities. But teachers have a profound impact. I share a story about my 6th grade teacher. As you know, or maybe you don't know, the teaching profession for African-American males is about 2%. So in a lot of schools, there's not a lot of African-American, it's not a whole bunch of African-American teachers, but specifically male. And so when I had an African-American teacher, I contribute a lot of my success. The book I wrote, he has a line in there, and I thank him because he was the first person that looked like me, came from maybe the same community I did, that really, really pushed and really, really believed in me. Now, I'm not talking about the stuff that he taught me. Like, you could keep all the little math lessons and English, you could keep all that. But the fact that I had somebody that was a male, that looked like me, that told me that they believed in me, I'm telling you, it changed my life. Now, I still did some dumb stuff, but for the most part, it changed my life. So I always tell teachers, like, never, like, I tell teachers, like, yo, you're a superhero. Like, don't forget that you are a superhero, especially if you're doing classes like you're with students. You have a chance to be able to pour into them, teach them life lessons from an early age. So teachers have a profound impact. I think one of the things I try to show teachers is that you have to be able to come down, still be a leader, but you have to be able to meet the student where they are. So for example, in your curriculum, I'm not telling you that you try to change things, and I got to be careful because I'm not trying to tell teachers how to do their jobs. They're way smarter than I am. You went to school to study all this. But at the same time is that you got to be able to make the stuff that you're teaching relatable. Like, for example, we was in high school. Nobody in high school is trying to read Beowulf and Shakespeare and Beethoven. I'm like, oh, come on, man. So I think sometimes, even doing little small things. So, for example, when I'm presenting, I'll bring up Cardi B references. If I'm here in Philly, I'll bring up a story about Meek. I remember Meek when I was in high school. Meek is about 2 years older than I am. So I remember seeing Meek down at my high school. This is before everybody knew who he was, of course. But I remember seeing him standing outside, passing out his CDs. And I talk about the grind that he had from an early age. And starts comparing it to academics. And it's like a light bulb goes off. So I said, look, I get it that you're a teacher. You got all of the knowledge and information. But if you can't break it down and give it to a student where they can understand it, then it's not going to make a difference. That's the first thing. And then the second thing, just being genuine, like have a genuine, which I'm sure 99% of the teachers do, but really have a genuine interest in every single student. It doesn't mean that you baby them. It means sometimes that you're going to have to put your foot on their neck. It means sometimes that you're going to have to give them tough love. Sometimes you're going to have to do above and beyond. So I think those are some things that I really try to stress to teachers. Like, let's start getting on their level so they can understand the information, because once they can trust you, you can take them to the promised land of wherever it is that you want to be. But if you're only coming in and it seems like you have a set agenda and you don't care, you're only going to be able to go but so far.
Yeah, it's so true. Because I even think about, whenever I went to school, I have that one teacher, maybe two teachers that just stood out to me because I could relate with them. They asked, how I was doing. Yeah. They cared. They showed genuine interest. But the rest of them, they're just like, hey,
come
class,
right.
Get out to homework. Yeah, we're going to do that. Okay.
Right.
It's insane, man. And it goes to show you, just personal development as a whole. It's for everybody. Like, it doesn't matter what age you are,
Exactly. Little kids, big kids, grown kids, medium kids, everybody. It is literally for everybody. So as I always say, is that if you're on a scale of 1 to 10, if you're a 6, there's no way that you'll be able ever to lead as a person that's a 7. It doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. You can only lead from your level of competency and down. So if you're a 6, you can only lead people who are 6 and beneath. So how do you grow to a 7, an 8, or a 9? You gotta get that personal development, like always working to become the best you. As I always tell all of my quote unquote entrepreneurs, is that literally I've had to become, in a good way, I've had to become a different person. Like I've had to grow in certain areas that was very, very painful. But I understood if I ever was going to get the results that I wanted, and if I ever was going to be able to make all my dreams and goals happen, Mike, you're not going to be able to get it being this version of you. So you're going to have to go to the drawing board. You got to figure out what adjustments do you need to make.
Yeah, that's deep. What? Let me ask you this. What would you recommend to somebody, student, teacher, whether it's a video, whether it's maybe a book or some type of resource?
Yeah.
What would you recommend to somebody that's looking to get into personal development, maybe even in speaking, right? Yeah. Maybe it's 2 books you could recommend to somebody that has really helped you and has really, changed the way, like your style, and really gotten you to where you're at,
Yeah, so I'm big on always getting somebody who can walk you through what you're trying to get to. So I always recommend a coach, somebody who can, somebody has a high level of expertise that you see what they're doing and you say, I would like to do that one day. Getting a coach, somebody who's going to hold you accountable, somebody who's going to tell you how it is, of where you need to improve. It has saved me so much headache and heartache, time, and trouble. So that's one. The second thing I would say is, I don't care where it is that you are. I don't care if you're trying to be a speaker, entrepreneur, you listen to this and you're a student, or you listen to this and you're in your first year of teaching. It is a book by Tim Grover called Relentless. It is a game changer. It, like, literally, because I think a lot of people, they want to be able to, whether it's I want to speak and make millions of dollars, I want to be an entrepreneur and make millions of dollars, I want to be the greatest teacher ever. Everything starts from a mindset. And that book by Tim Grover, Relentless, it will literally put you in a mindset of, yo, I'm about to crush anything that's in front of me. I'm about to crush. And for all of you who are fans, or you read the book, the goal is to always be a cleaner. The goal is to always be a cleaner, right? So that's a book that I highly recommend. On the speaking side, I would say get connected to like a coaching program if you don't feel comfortable doing like maybe a one-on-one thing, but maybe get connected to a coaching program, somebody who's coaching speakers that they can show you what it takes. So I'm super big on people always making investments in them. Before success comes sacrifice. So yes, you might have to put out some money. You might have to go to conferences. You might have to buy a book. Like that is a part of the game. You do not grow for free. Like that, it just don't work. You're not going to grow for free. Like it just don't work. Like it comes with some pain, but I'm telling you, at the end of it, when you look back and say, man, I'm so glad that I made that investment. Again, I'm not telling you that you got to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you want to, that's your choice. But you do have to be able to make an investment, not just in money, but make an investment in you, because you owe it to yourself to grow.
That's deep, bro, man. I'm about to pop open my quote book, Mike. Give me 1 second. Shoot, but no, that's so true, because a lot of people, they ask, hey, what's the best investment I can do? Like, where should I start? People think, oh, real estate. Oh man, I'm gonna invest into a nice car or something like that. And I'm like, nah, bro, it's in you. Like, you just gotta invest in you, level up your mentality. That's helped me so much. And even myself, like, to all my introverts that are out there, right? People, they might not get comfortable, or they might not feel too comfortable around like a bigger group.
Yeah.
But shoot, I mean, looking at even like yourself, Mike, I mean, with the sessions that you do one-on-one, I mean, I'm sure there's even tons of other speakers that do it as well. Like you said, finding a program, and I can attest to that as well. With the programs that I've been in, it's definitely helped me a lot with the mental game. And of course, like I said, I'm introverted, really just breaking out of my shell, because man, me 5 years ago, doing an interview right now with you, Mike, shoot, maybe lucky to get a peep out of me, like, hey, what's up, man? You feel me?
Wow, I never would have guessed that though, because I guess what you've done is you have purposely made yourself uncomfortable until you get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because I never would have guessed that you were an introvert. I was like, oh, I always see doing your thing, and I'm like, oh, for sure, I know that he's extrovert. Now that you're saying that's not natural, I was like, that's the whole point of you being able to grow to a point of understand, like, if I'm going to be successful, I can't be just introverted my entire life. Like, I'm going to need to be able to talk. So I think that's key. I never knew that. I guess you learn something new every day.
No, for sure, man. It's funny. I get that a lot. A lot of people say, wait, Nate, you're an introvert? I'm like, I mean, naturally I am. Yeah. They're like, that's crazy. But like you said, I got uncomfortable. I mean, shoot. I mean, if somebody asked me to, hey, Nate, get up, do your thing, speak a little bit, whether it's on branding, marketing, or something motivational, like, of course, I always get nervous, but I mean, I know how to play that to my advantage.
Yeah.
And like you said, I got uncomfortable, man. So no, it's definitely all about investing in yourself. I mean, that'll win you tenfold at the end of the day. So Mike, man, I mean, where can the audience, where can the listeners find you at on social media? Do you got a website? I know you got a book too. So
yeah. So they can find me. I'm at Mike Nelson. So MikeNelson, MikeNelsonSpeaks.com. Common spelling. I am on Instagram as Mike the Motivator. Common spelling. No underscores. No any of that. Mike the Motivator. I'm on Facebook at Mike Nelson. I'm on Twitter at Mike the Motivator. Snapchat is kind of I do have a Snapchat name, but I know that you're gonna kill me. I'm not even on my. I don't even know my own Snapchat name. I gotta get that fixed. So if you want to contact me, it's email info@MikeNelsonSpeaks.com, MikeNelsonSpeaks.com, Facebook Mike Nelson, or Instagram Mike the Motivator.
Perfect, Mike. Yeah, I'll for sure attach all the links below, as well as the emails for people to reach out to you. I know you're pretty responsive, through the DMs, and of course, emails and everything. So I'll attach them below. And really, Mike, I mean, with every guest that I have on here, I like them to sort of end it on a really, not just a brighter or positive note, but a note where somebody can actually execute on. Because a lot of people, they lead them with information, but it's just information, right? So what, in Mike Nelson's words, would you like to leave with the audience today that they can actually go out, apply, whether it's in school or whether it's just in life in general, for the listeners?
Yeah, so it's funny that you said it. So I just was on a call yesterday doing a group training with speakers, and they were asking me all these questions like, what's the biggest thing that you can tell me? So I'm gonna say it right now. The biggest thing I can tell you right now, it's nothing sexy. It ain't a 6.6 paragraph sentence. I wrote this on IG. This was back on June 19th. It says, 5 years ago, by the grace of God, when I started speaking, I had no business account, no resources, no connections, no certifications, no LLC, no equipment. You know what I did? I got started. Stop focusing on what you don't have and focus on what you do have, because what you do have is plenty. Get started. So that would be my biggest thing as far as executing. Listen, if you got a dream, you got a goal, like, get started. It's so many of us, I think sometimes we overthink, like, I need to have a lawyer. I need to draw up some contracts. I'm like, I need to get an LLC. I'm like, but you haven't done anything yet. You don't need help to do nothing. Like, you don't need help. You don't need help to do that. So my biggest thing was, anybody out there listening, look, you could say, man, you know what, Mike, I'm trying to pass this test. I'm thinking about, should I do it? I'm like, go ahead and get started. You're trying to start a business, go ahead and get started. You're trying to lose weight, go ahead and get started. You're thinking about joining a personal development club, get started. That would be my biggest thing, because once you get started, you'll be able to see what you need to do, and you're going to make mistakes along the way. Don't make no mistake about it. I'm still making mistakes every single day. But meanwhile, as I always say, what makes me special, I guess, is not the fact that I'm not great at what I do, but I just don't quit. And I got started. And so as I continue this journey of getting started and starting new things and projects and ventures, it has helped me tremendously, because it has given me thick skin through this process, like getting rejected, going through critique. But if you don't get started, you'll never know where you could end up. So every goal and dream that you got in your mind right now that you're thinking about, I'm telling you from experience, it can happen. But it's not going to happen if you don't get started. So my biggest takeaway and advice is, please do yourself a favor. Get started. Nothing sexy, 2 words. Get started.
Man, straight up. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it from the man, the myth, the legend, Mike Nelson. Brother, I really appreciate you being on today, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it.